So after a week in which we were clawed back against Blackburn Rovers to a 2-2 draw, I didn't do a video for that. I ain't got face on. I was just knackered that night, and I thought, you know what? I am actually going to go to bed. So we were clawed back there. It was a poor second half performance, hoping to put it right today, as Wednesday welcomed Oxford United to Hillsborough. I returned to Hillsborough for Will Volks, a player who was released last year. I think he was offered a deal. I don't think it was sort of deal he was after. Warm reception for him, in warm up, and every time he went to take a throw-in, actually, just about for the rest of the game, he got a warm reception until he hurled one in for winner. But we'll come to that. No place in today's squad for Barry Bannon. Struggling with an ankle injury. He's been apparently having injections. There's a whole host of ex-Wednesday players who played with injections through the years, and most of them doubling about now, so you've got to be careful with that game. Not risked to play, and I don't blame him. He's played nearly every other game this season. I think he's played most minutes out of anybody. 35 years old. You know, given a lot of great service to Wednesday, so, you know, I think you do owe him a debt to look after him when he does pick up a rare knock. Quick look at the Wednesday side then. Wednesday with Pierce Charles in goal, the back four of Valerie, Ahekwe, Fameo and Johnson. Midfield two of Armstrong and Shea Charles. Windass in the floating position with Big Pato up front, flanked on either side by Masaba and Gassama. On paper, you know, it's not a bad side. Obviously, we're missing Bannon, but I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's a decent side. I like a 4-1-2, but that's just me. As you know, in midfield, I like that shape. I've seen it melt down after game. Obviously, we've lost the game. But I thought we started all right. You know, it was a bit of a scrappy affair to start off with, and a few loose touches from both teams. But I thought Wednesday started growing it into a little bit. And that first half, I thought we pretty much controlled that game, to be honest with you. They had one or two little shots. Brannigan got in a couple of times. We noticed that when we were down there in third division when we were playing against him. He's a good player at Brannigan, but he's got that thing where he breaks late from midfield and he loses his marker and gets in. And he did that a couple of times today. Probably a bit unlucky not to score, actually. With one of them that flashed just over the bar. But overall, I thought Wednesday were on top in that first half. But here's where that thing comes in, where they always used to say, you know, there's lies, damn lies and stats. Because if you looked at it statistically on that first half, you'd say Wednesday's had more at ball. Probably had more at ball in their box. More corners. I think they only got one corner in the first half. More shots, more passes. You know, I particularly checked, but I suspect on every metric would have been on top. But sometimes it's not just about stats; it's what you see with your eyes. And there was I just got a feeling today. I don't think we're going to score a goal. And obviously, it's a sensation. We've had a lot at home this season, and I think one of the reasons for that is the way that we set up and what gets the best out of our players, and also the way the opposition set up. What I noticed second half at one point was we'd got a throw-in at left-hand side. Ingleson would have to take it. There was a little bit of a delay. Ref were chatting with Liner about something. And I was just having a count up. There were 16 players in the Oxford box to defend the throw-in. Every one of their outfield players was in that 18-yard box to defend that throw. There was about 6 Wednesday players in there, so they're outnumbered nearly 2-1. Hello.
Oh, there's a spider in my room.
There's a spider in your room?
Yeah.
I'm starting to think you don't care about Sheffield Wednesday videos.
You've got to get rid of it.
Just get a glass and a bit of paper.
It's on the, ceiling.
It's on the ceiling? Get a glass and a bit of paper and stand on your bed.
No, because it's It's massive out when it's like going.
How big is it? Massive. It's not that big.
It is.
That's bigger than my hand.
No, it's not like that.
Spider gone, drama averted. I forgot where they were. Anyway, Oxford. Our home form is shocking. It is absolutely shocking, and there's no hiding from that. Our home form is terrible. But why is that? I think one of the reasons for that is because of the squad we've got. Now, I'm not going to sit here and Wednesday you've got a lot of shit players and blah, 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 but, we can go through this for an hour on end. But I think what we have got is that our better players, and I think this is the key, our better players are suited to playing a certain way of football, a certain style of football. And I think the players we've got in our squad are best suited for playing a counter-attacking style, which we see away from home all the time. So when we're at home, and here's another thing, away from home, massive Wednesday following, 3,000 fans, chanting all through the game, getting behind them, and an away following is different to a home following. Away, you're probably going to be under the cosh. It's up to the opposition to come out and have a go at you. And away fans expect that. If you try to set up at Hillsborough and say, right, we're going to sit off our best assets are players like Gassama, Masaba, even Charles, who are good at driving on the break, fans won't wear it. That's the truth. I think you get a different type of support at home than you do away. And I don't think a home support would take that. I don't think a home support would take opposition teams coming to Hillsborough and having 60, 65% at ball. Now, they might after a while if you were winning games, but overall, I think there's that thing of at home, you want to be entertained, you want to see your team dominating and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that suits us. I don't think it suits our style of play. And the key thing is, it doesn't suit our better players. So look at players like Gassama. At his most dangerous when we're breaking and when he's got the opportunity to break at pace into space. Now when pitch is really stretched, say we clear our 18-yard box and he picks hold at ball halfway up our half and they've got 4 men back, he can streak into that space. Very hard to stop somebody who's running at full pelt like him, especially when he's got good quick feet. But games like today in open play, there was a bit in the first half. Charles were down the right side, linked with Valerie. He cut a ball back to Gassama, who turned in, and he was trying to have a run at him. Got 7 men in front of him in their 18-yard box in open play. Now you might beat one, you might evade second. You're not going to beat 3 and 4. And like I said, I don't counter-attack. They might have men back, but 2 or 3 men are guarding a bigger area, a bigger space. So if you get past one, you might still have 2, 3, 4 yards before you get to the next. When you dominate ball, when they've got 10 back in and around back, you get past one, you're stepping straight into the next one. There isn't the space for players like that to excel. And he's had an excellent season, Gassama, and I know of late 1 or 2 people, his form has dropped off a little bit, and it has, because a young player, that's going to happen. But I think it also coincides with us having home games where we're dominating the ball, because that's not the best of him. Now, away from home, I would describe Wednesday's attacking as like a lightning strike. You know what I mean? And we're in. At home, that don't work. You've got all the ball. So what you need somebody to go and pick an heavy-duty lock, because that's what all teams are doing. Coventry did it. I think one of the best examples was probably Luton. When they came, their 2 centre-halves unbelievable. Just numbers in box. So you need someone with that cuteness, and I think that's what we like. We ain't got those cute players. And you've got to get the best out of what you've got, but we haven't got that type of player. That's why we play that sort of sharp, quick counter on the roll. But at home, I think the nearest thing we had today to that sort of player, a crafty bastard, was probably Armstrong, because Armstrong's got that ability to see a pass before the ball comes to him, so that when he comes, he plays the balls first time. Some people it's 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch. Armstrong, very good, and it helps get your tempo up as well. Very good at ball comes in and he's just straight out, 1 touch. So many 1-touch passes from Armstrong in that first half, and I don't feel like it's a shame that he went off, because I thought he would probably our most creative link. But you've got to have, in home matches especially, you've got to have them crafty bastards at edge of box, you know. So players like, God, De Greiser, what a wonderful player he was. I loved him. 1 season. Terrible shame. Wonderful player. But you've got to have them crafty bastards. Beardsley, you know, a Joe Cole, a De Bruyne, crafty little fuckers at edge of box with them little passes. And there were a few times today that players actually attempted them crafty little balls or whatever, but we weren't quite on it. There were a couple of times, Shea Charles has not had a great game today, but there were a couple of times when he's made one of them little crafty passes, you know. The fullback might be there and centre halves here, and he's made that little crafty pass through gap, and people are on their heels. So I just don't think it suits us, being the team with the dominance of the ball. Now, obviously in an ideal world, you can have players who can play on counter-attack away from home, and they can play dominating, sneaky football, if you like, at home. You know, the keys to unlock it. We ain't got them. We ain't got that sort of squad. We haven't recruited that sort of player. Like I said, possibly with exception of Armstrong. We ain't got those players like Kieran Lee, Ross Wallace, who get inside, them little give and goes, and then getting little pockets of space and really open teams up when they've got loads of men behind ball. But, you know, we've got a different set of tools in locker. You know, we've got Pato and Smith, and you can try and batter your way through. That's, you know, one option. We've got, like I said, Gassama, Masaba, quick, good at taking people on, streaking away on counter. But when you're up against, you know, 4-man defence, and then like, there might be a banker 4 or 5 in front of them, and it's all like that on edge of 18 yards, but it's so hard to break down. And quite frankly, we're not good enough to do that on a consistent basis. And at home, that is when you tend to need that sort of performance. And we haven't seen enough of them this season. You know, it has been poor. But did we expect much else? I know that overall, over a season, you'd expect to see more home wins. I get that. But when you compared it to the away form, that surely shows you what I'm on about, in the difference in the way that you set up to play, and the difference in the way the opposition set up to play as well. So, now, I've seen some lads getting hammered tonight online. They weren't trying a leg. I expected a bit more from 1 or 2 of them. I'll say that. But really, not trying a leg. I just don't think it's that type of game suits them. You know, when they're the dominating team. And Danny's come out after the game. Obviously, he's made substitutions, and people are like shit. And I've actually seen Danny taking a lot of shit tonight for the first time, which is very good news for somebody out there. Has he made mistakes this season? Of course he's made mistakes. How old is he? 35, 36. In managerial terms, that's an infant. In managerial terms, that's primary school. You know, it's his first job. He's going to make mistakes. We see managers at 50 and 60 making mistakes, so he's going to make some. Of course he does. He's not infallible. You know, he's not untouchable. He's not, you know, he's not beyond criticism. Of course he ain't. But when you look at the squad we've got, when you look at where we were last season, Christ, look at where we were the season before that. This season has been a step in the right direction. We finished mid-table, which before the season anybody would have taken. Now we've missed out on the playoffs. You know, I think that was always a stretch for us anyway. It's only people are losing their minds. It's not good enough and blah, blah, blah. It's a stepping stone. We stayed up last season skin at teeth. We're now going to finish probably, between 12th and 14th. And next season should be a building block on that. Next season should be the season where we say, can we have a tilt at playoffs now? Because I think he's got this squad to the peak of their abilities overall. Not just talking about home form, obviously that is poor, but as a group and as a whole over the season, all the form together, all man away, I think we are overperforming the average. So to see him getting pelters for that, I think, to be honest, I think it's poor. Now, there's always an element, everything is snap. We've lost today, so we're shit. We've lost today, so the manager's shit. And I get that. And bloody hell, genuinely, if Twitter was around 40 years ago, there'd have been people wanting Ron Atkinson set. He's got us fucking relegated the twat, let him fuck off, wouldn't they? Because it's so reactionary and fucking wank, get rid of the bastard, you know what I mean? So we'd have never probably won that cup final back then, because folks would have been, get rid of him, shit, it's not good enough. Shouldn't be losing 3-0 to teams like Forest. You'd have had all that. Like I said, it's not infallible. It's not beyond criticism. But I think what we've seen today is what the squad is. And I think what we've seen before, when the performances have been of a high level, because it weren't a high level today, but when they have been of a high level, is because that manager's got that out of him. He's got that little bit extra out of him. Now, for whatever reason, today's been poorer than usual. Maybe it's because we're no one on in playoffs. Maybe it's because they haven't been paid. Maybe it's because half of them are out of contract next season and they're thinking, well, I'm not going to pick up a fucking injury, am I? Because I might be finding a new club in 3 months. So there's all these little factors. But overall, yes, I do wish the season was over now, because there's a lot still up in the air about players and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to slag the manager. I'm not going to slag these players, because overall, over the season, I think they've been above what they probably should be on paper. I just find that very depressing. I think that's the first time I've really seen people sort of going at manager like that. Maybe next season we can get the next Cisco. Get rid of Danny, get the next Cisco in. I'm sure he'll get these players to top 2 or 3 positions. If I snap my son out of it, I'm letting folks negativity affect me. All very convenient though for one person. Fuck it, I'll do a separate video on that. I ain't used any of my notes. I made notes for the game. Armstrong drives forward 9 minutes, brilliant 1-2 with Marv, back for the third, drags just wide. I've got all these notes, but in the end, it's frustrating for everybody. It is frustrating for everybody, but look at the bigger picture. Where were you expecting this team to finish this season? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's common bloody sense to me. I want you to make an intricate piece of jewellery. What tools have I got? 2 bricks and a sledgehammer. Right, sound. Let's see how we get on. Fuck me.